Mr. Pretti and Ms. Good, that was an execution, and you did not investigate it. And you tried to investigate Ms. Good's widow, and you tried to investigate Mr. Pretti. They were executed, like Kristi Noem executed her dog.
In a heated exchange during Attorney General Pam Bondi's House Judiciary Committee testimony, Representative Steve Cohen confronted Bondi about the fatal shootings of 2 U.S. citizens, Alex Pretti and Renée Good, by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis. Cohen accused the Justice Department of failing to investigate what he called executions by ICE agents, while also challenging the administration's immigration enforcement priorities in his Memphis district.
I am from Memphis, General Bondi, and Memphis does have the task force there. The Memphis Safe Task Force has been operating in Memphis for several months, and we do have a Democratic Mayor, Paul Young, and he's not against the task force, but he is against ICE being in Memphis, and he's not in favor of the National Guard being in Memphis. And I concur with him on those positions. I think the DEA being there, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the FBI, who have been in Memphis in other ways, having more people there is good for Memphis. Crime has gone down in Memphis, but it went down 25% before the task force got there under the direction of Mayor Young and Director Davis, Chief Davis. It's gone down about 15% more since then, and that's good. But I would like to comment that Mexico City's homicide rate has gone down 40% during the same time when Memphis has only gone down 25%, and that's not necessarily because of the task force, although the mayor says he thinks it's helped. So I thank you for that. You would agree, I presume, that violent crime in communities across our country is critically important, and that's why the task force is there. Is that not true?
Yes, and if I can just add to that, I think the surge, the FBI, our FBI under the leadership of Director Patel came in and did a surge in Memphis.
Earlier.
Prior to the task force. And thank you for saying that about Mayor Young. He's been great to work with, and thank you.
He's a good guy.
He's a very good guy.
One problem I've got with where we are in priorities here. A recent Department of Justice, National Institute of Justice report based on arrest records in Texas and in California found that undocumented immigrants were less than half as likely as U.S.-born Americans to be arrested for homicide. And this pattern holds for assault, sexual assault, robbery, burglary, theft, and arson. Half as likely to be arrested for drug offenses. So I ask you, and I've written to you about this, there are TV ads that run that say to local law enforcement, specifically, says, are you tired of having your hands handcuffed because you can't do the things you wanted to do when you joined? And if you want to do something different, join ICE, and you'll get a $50,000 bonus, and we'll pay off your debts, student debts, and we'll help you with pensions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're encouraging local law enforcement to leave local law enforcement and go to work for ICE. We need people working in the front lines and local law enforcement to protect our citizens from the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst are not the immigrants. The worst of the worst records show are native-born Americans, and they are committing crimes that hurt our citizens and our cities, and you're working against it, and thank you for that. But by trying to get our local law enforcement, where we have an undercount of officers in Memphis, to leave Memphis and go to work for ICE to deport people is a wrong priority. Why are we trying to get people, policemen who are working on the front lines, to leave the front lines, take the $50,000 and go to work for ICE and instead of working to fight the worst of the worst?
Congressman, I have not yet seen that commercial, that ad. I would argue that we need strong people in both local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and all of our federal agencies working together. I've seen some of the worst violent criminals who were in this country illegally. We both know that. And in Memphis, working hand in hand, I want to stick with Memphis and your mayor and what you discussed, because there have been nearly 6,000 arrests as of February 8th, and I think you agree with this, in your district, and almost 600 gang members. What we found in Memphis, a lot of the gangs are local gangs. But 600 gang members were taken off the streets.
Because I've only 40 seconds. I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah.
I thank you for that.
And 148 missing children were recovered by all of us working together, and nearly 1,000 illegal guns were seized as a result of us working together.
And I don't disagree with some of the things you said, but there are questions about those children, but it's a different thing. The fact is, ICE is running rampant, and you are not investigating them. When they killed Mr. Pretti and Miss Good, that was an execution, and you did not investigate it. And you tried to investigate her, Miss Good's widow, and you tried to investigate Mr. Pretti. They were executed like Kristi Noem executed her dog. And that was wrong. And you should investigate those people, and you should investigate anybody that uses a weapon, in federal official or not, for civil rights violations. I yield back.
Representative Steve Cohen's confrontation with Attorney General Pam Bondi during the House Judiciary Committee hearing crystallized fundamental tensions in American immigration enforcement policy and exposed deep disagreements over law enforcement priorities, federal accountability, and the treatment of immigrants in the United States. The exchange, centered on Memphis and the fatal shootings of Alex Pretti and Renée Good by ICE agents in Minneapolis, revealed not just a clash of policy positions, but competing visions of justice, public safety, and governmental responsibility. Cohen highlighted a critical paradox in current enforcement strategies. While data from the Department of Justice's National Institute of Justice shows that undocumented immigrants commit violent crimes at rates significantly lower than native-born Americans, less than half as likely to be arrested for homicide, assault, sexual assault, robbery, and drug offenses, federal resources are being redirected toward immigration enforcement, rather than addressing the statistically more significant threat posed by citizen offenders. This misalignment raises questions about whether current policy is driven by evidence-based safety concerns or other motivations. Cohen's objection to ICE recruitment campaigns targeting local law enforcement officers was particularly striking. By offering $50,000 signing bonuses, student debt forgiveness, and enhanced pensions, the federal government is enticing officers away from understaffed municipal departments. In Memphis, where the police force already operates below optimal levels, this strategy undermines local public safety. Officers who could be investigating homicides, responding to domestic violence, or patrolling high-crime neighborhoods are instead encouraged to join an agency focused on deporting individuals who statistically pose less risk to communities than the general population. The deaths of Pretti and Good represent the most troubling aspect of the hearing, what Cohen described as executions by federal agents that remain uninvestigated. Comparing the killings to senseless violence, he emphasized that federal officers must be held to the same civil rights standards as any other law enforcement personnel. Bondi's failure to address calls for accountability and reports that investigations targeted the victims' families rather than the agents suggested a double standard in justice administration when federal immigration enforcement is involved. While Bondi highlighted outcomes from the Memphis Safe Task Force, including nearly 6,000 arrests, 600 gang members apprehended, 148 missing children recovered, and nearly 1,000 illegal guns seized, Cohen noted that many of the gangs were local. He argued these results could have been achieved by traditional law enforcement without ICE or National Guard intervention. The reported 15% crime reduction since the task force's arrival, while positive, was less than the 25% reduction achieved previously under local leadership and fell short of the 40% reduction seen in comparable periods elsewhere, suggesting federal involvement may not have been decisive. This hearing exposed the human and institutional consequences of prioritizing immigration enforcement over evidence-based public safety strategies. It raised urgent questions about federal accountability for lethal force, the wisdom of depleting local police to staff federal operations, and whether current policy serves genuine security interests or political objectives. As communities nationwide face these tensions, the Cohen-Bondi exchange underscores the need to align enforcement resources with real threats, demand accountability from officials, and ensure policy decisions are grounded in data rather than rhetoric. The unresolved issues highlighted by this exchange, the uninvestigated deaths, the weakening of local law enforcement, and the misalignment of federal priorities, remain critical challenges for American immigration policy and public trust.